नमस्कार। मैं प्रोफेसर रेखा सप्रा भारती कॉलेज की ऑफिशिएटिंग प्रिंसिपल हूँ और मैं ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट चाइल्ड साइकोलॉजी के फील्ड से आ रही हूँ और उस क्षेत्र में मैं काम करती हूँ। मेरा जो क्षेत्र है मैं उसमें चाइल्ड साइकोलॉजी, बच्चों से संबंधित समस्याएं और उन समस्याओं के साथ, व्यवहारिक समस्याओं के साथ कैसे जूझना है, इस पर मैं पूरा काम कर रही हूँ। और मेरा अपना सेंटर है जहाँ मैं बच्चों के संबंधित समस्याओं, व्यवहारिक प्रॉब्लम्स को डील करती हूँ। आज जो मेरा टॉपिक है वो है अर्ली चाइल्डहुड केयर एंड एजुकेशन, कि किस तरह से प्रारंभिक वर्ष बच्चों के लिए इम्पॉर्टेंट है। और सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ ये है कि ये जो शुरू के साल हैं, ECCE we say that it is early childhood care and education, and it consists of different elements of care, health, nutrition, play and early learning in a very protective and enabling environment, and these cannot be separated. It is a foundation for a lifelong development of the child, and learning has a lasting impact on early childhood development. So early childhood care and education is very important, and we have to give priority attention to ECCE and invest in it, since it is the most cost effective way to break the integrational and intergenerational cycle of multiple disadvantages and remove inequity, leading to a long term social and economic benefits. To say in very simple words, I would like to add that early childhood education is the foundation for the lifelong development of an individual, and it is this development which, when taken care in a proper holistic manner, can lead to a stable personality during early years and during the entire life. And when we talk of early years, we have to understand the importance and why this age is so critical. From birth to 8 years, the age is very, very critical, and it has been scientifically proven that these years of human development are the years when the brain development is taking place at the maximum rate, and any neglect or any of the causes can give rise to many irreversible damages, and 90% of the brain development takes place in the first 5 years. So we understand how important and critical it is for us as caregivers, as parents, as teachers and professionals in child development services, that these years the children have to be given maximum attention, because it is the period when the early experiences can affect the quality of the architecture by establishing either a sturdy or a fragile foundation for the learning in near future for health and behavior that follows. So we understand that how these 8 years, first 8 years of life and the prenatal period of life are so important, and we have to focus on the experiences, because the quality of these experiences is going to determine how sturdy the person is going to develop as an individual. And that sturdiness is not just in terms of physical development, rather socio-emotional, mental well-being, and in all domains of development. So we have to understand the criticality of these early years and take into account these years, so that a strong foundation for future development is built for the child. The criticality has been discussed. In the first few years of life, more than 1 million new neural connections are formed every second. After this period of rapid proliferations, connections are reduced through a process called pruning, so that brain circuits become more efficient. So in a way, the initial neural connections, they get consolidated, so that we have a strong neural system wherein the child's development in different domains and developments can take place adequately. Sensory pathways like those for basic vision and hearing are the first to develop. These are followed by early language skills and higher cognitive functions. Connections proliferates and prunes in a prescribed order, with later more complex brain circuits built upon earlier simpler circuits. So the point is that these circuits are very important because on this are based our later developments of the child. So this diagram clearly depicts how the human brain develops and what different domains are developing at different time periods, like the language development, the motor development and cognitive development. They all take place at different periods of time. So we have to be very sure that the time when a particular domain of development is most active, that is called the critical period for that development. So we have criticalities in different areas. The interactive influences of genes and experience shape the developing brain, serve and return. The brain's capacity for change decreases with age. The brain is most flexible, plastic in earlier years to accommodate a wide range of environments and interactions, but as the maturing brain becomes more specialized to assume more complex functions, it is less capable of reorganizing and adapting to new or unexpected challenges. The cognitive, emotional, social capacities are intricately intertwined throughout the life course, and the brain is a highly interrelated organ, and its multiple functions operate in a widely, richly coordinated fashion. Emotional well-being and social competence provide a strong foundation for emerging cognitive abilities. So based on the importance of brain development during the early years and the criticality, we have to have some objectives of the early education, like the early childhood care and education prepares a foundation for a child's all-round development, growth and development. We prepare the children for their formal education, motivating to ensure that children enroll into the school and creating a peaceful atmosphere for children to spend the time. So these are the objectives of our early childhood care and education, which each and every child needs to go through so as to ensure a smooth functioning or smooth interaction with the environment and a developmental stages which can grow into other areas as well. The different domains of development as it's visible from the diagram are physical development, social, emotional development, language development, cognitive development, and all these need to be studied in depth so as to we understand how the holistic development of a child can be taken up. The physical development, as we all know, the stages are clearly depicted. The child starts holding the neck, then raising the chest, sitting, walking, standing, crawling, running, tiptoeing, walking stairs and coming down the stairs. So the physical development basically involves developing control over the body, particularly the muscles and physical coordination. The muscle coordination can be of large muscles and also the smaller muscles. So in order to promote the large and small muscle coordination, we can give lots of activities to children in the age group of 0 to 8 years, which any early educator will definitely be able to specify as to what all activities can promote the physical development of the early school years or the early childhood years. The motor development refers to the development of a child's bones, muscles and the ability to move around and manipulate the environment. The motor development, as I've just said, is either can be gross motor development or physical motor development or the fine motor development, as I've said, large and the small muscles. Then the child learns different expressions, the expression of love, anger, fear, jealousy, aggression. All these emotions are expressed from the time a child is born. So by the child is about 3 months, these emotions start taking place. So by way of different activities like poems, play, festival celebrations, other activities, the children can express their own emotions. So when we talk of social development, it means the attainment of maturity in social relationships. This term itself means that when a child learns to act in a manner appropriate to a particular social setting, it becomes a social development for the child. Like as the child grows, the child understands how he or she is required to act in a nursery school setting or in front of different people who may not be related or are not the parents. So the different expectations that a child learns to respond to in a social milieu is the significant social development for the child. And how do we know that the child has attained social development? So when a child is playing in small groups, sharing his things, sharing food, birthday celebrations, festival celebrations, helping a friend in need, all these can be covered under the social development domain. So all these activities, and in day-to-day activities also, the parents and the caregivers can enhance social development of children by virtue of portraying a behavior which the child can model, like saying thank you when someone gives you something, or asking the child to take some responsibility, maybe when someone comes in the house, sharing a glass of water or serving some food. All this come under the domains of social development. Cognitive development basically refers to describing and understanding the children's intellectual abilities and their knowledge of the world. When we say intellectual abilities or cognitive development, it basically refers to the aspect how a child is going to understand her environment, how the child is going to adapt to her environment, and how the child is going to cope with different situations, new learning situations in her environment. So cognitive development basically encompasses the entire domain of developments which can be related to any aspect of learning. Cognitive basically means to understand, how one understands or how the knowledge is developed. This is what cognitive development is all about. It is about knowledge construction. The very fact that the child understands the names of the colors, the body parts, the food items, or anything that in the environment the child is able to understand makes it under the domain of cognitive development. Their knowledge of the world is in fact the cognitive development. The best part is that when the children start going to any learning center or any play school or any nursery setting, then different activities that are provided to children, like matching games, pattern, sequencing, differentiation of things, and many other activities where they can identify, name, or find a pattern in something. All these activities, they come under the domains of cognitive development. And when we say language in itself is a very, very large domain of development, because language just does not come into existence with words. For words, we need to have certain mental images, certain words which the child has as a representation in her mind. So language development is a process which starts early in human life. Infants start without the language, but by the age of 10 months, the child can distinguish speech sounds and engage in babbling. So even during early years, the child is able to communicate by way of babbling, by way of gestures, and by way of many other sounds. The child makes his or her needs known to the parents and the caregivers. The language development comprises of 4 components, which are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So first of all, the major important component of language development is listening, and we need to enhance the skills of the children early in life, because the entire learning process in the school years and other places is dependent on the ability of the child to listen and to be able to focus on different aspects. So these early years are very important for us to ensure that the child learns how to listen, because listening is also an art, and the listening can of course be emphasized, can of course be created in a way so that the child learns to focus on certain aspects of what is being heard in the environment. The next most important aspect of learning language is the speaking part. When the child learns to understand the language, learns to understand the meaning of the words, grammatical comprehensions, and using the language in a grammatically correct manner is very important. So by the time a child is in the early years, maybe 3 to 6 years, the child can speak more than 300 words. Then in the early years, we focus on reading as well as writing. The basic foundation for reading will be the sounds that a child learns in the preschool center. And also, when we ask a child to draw lines, curved lines, straight lines, circle, semicircle, and all these things, these are all the foundation for the writing part. So listening and drawing, painting arts, all these activities, cutting, pasting, all these are pre-reading and pre-writing skills, because these are the most important skills that a child is going to acquire and need in the school years when the child enters a formal school setting. Development is a continuous process. It begins early in the prenatal stage, and the ECD part focuses on age group 0 to 3, 3 to 6, and then 6 to 8 years, which are the early formal schooling years. And development never takes place in a vacuum. It always takes place in an environment where the child is interacting with other individuals, with other persons in the social milieu. So we always say that development is an interactive process. So in other words, we can also say that development, learning are all skills that a child needs to acquire for the social as well as emotional competencies, along with other competencies which a child learns for next new age learning. When we talk of development during early years, then there is a synergy between health, nutrition and psychosocial development, and we need to have a strategy, an integrated approach for ECCD. And the development is affected by both the nature and the nurture, and the interaction with the environment at several levels is really responsible for how a child is going to learn in the coming times. Because this nature-nurture controversy and these philosophies, they have been there for a long period of time, but both these components are so important that one needs to work on these issues. And based on at what age group a child is, we need to have developmentally appropriate practices that informs the process of professionals in making decisions about the well-being and education of children based on at least 3 important information: what is known about the child development and learning, what is known about the strengths, interests, needs of each individual child, and knowledge of social and cultural context in which children live. With this, I would like to end this talk, which is first in the series on early childhood education, and I am sure in coming series we will discuss this in details about the various domains of development and how we can provide appropriate developmentally and culturally appropriate practices and activities so as to enhance the development of children during these early years. Thank you.